What's going on, y'all? Random Thoughts here. And today I wanted to talk about what I believe to be the fallacy of getting stuck in tutorial hell. So let's just dive right into it. All right. So first, some context. What is tutorial hell? Tutorial hell is this idea that, if you're first starting out in engineering development, whatever, that you are going to take a tutorial, and then you're going to take a tutorial, and then you're going to continuously take a tutorial to the point where tutorial's all the way down. That's this idea, and I get it and I understand it, and there is some truth to it, absolutely. But from where I'm coming from, I don't believe that's always the case where you're stuck in tutorial hell, because 8-ish years into my career, I still fall back on tutorials to some degree. So an example, I was assigned to a project to scale our RabbitMQ instance. And first, what is RabbitMQ? It's the quick answer. It's a message broker that allows services to essentially communicate with each other. So think of services-oriented architecture, think of microservices, and then that's essentially the quick version right there. So what I needed to do was I needed to scale it because we had one instance of RabbitMQ that was not able to handle the load anymore. So there's a lot of services trying to communicate with each other. So I needed to act fairly quickly. So how I addressed that was I dove into a tutorial. I needed to understand what RabbitMQ even was before I could even begin working on this from like an infrastructure standpoint. So the first thing I went to YouTube and I searched in what is a message broker. And then after that, I learned about that. I typed in what is RabbitMQ. So I looked into that, watched a couple of videos, and then I looked at the documentation. So I loaded up the documentation. I looked at any examples that they could provide. I went back to YouTube and I looked at a tutorial to actually go through a walkthrough scenario of building my own implementation of utilizing RabbitMQ, so I could understand like how these services were using it. What does it mean? So I got that depth. I got to the depth that I needed to understand it, and then I ended up going to another tutorial and then containerizing RabbitMQ, understanding how RabbitMQ could become highly available. And then from there, I looked at solutions. There were a couple of different solutions there. There was one where we could kind of roll our own. We could roll our own RabbitMQ on EKS, so Amazon's approach to Kubernetes. So that was one approach. And then there was an easier approach. And that easier approach ended up becoming Amazon MQ. So I had recently found, I'd found that they had recently added basically our version of RabbitMQ that we were running. So that was a huge positive. So I opted into going down that route. And then as a result, needed to, build out Amazon MQ. So I needed, X number of VPCs and all of those kinds of things. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up using a tutorial to some degree to learn this. I didn't necessarily get stuck in tutorial hell, but I did use a tutorial. So that's how I solved the business problem, by using a combination of documentation and a tutorial without getting stuck in tutorial hell. So the reasoning as to why I wanted to even make this video was just to call out how that terminology is kind of like being thrown around, where I don't want folks to get into the mindset of, if they're looking up how to do something via video tutorial or even like a blog or whatever, that they should feel bad about it. So I don't think that's the case at all, because this is something that I do in my career, fairly common. Like if I'm assigned something, and I'm usually assigned stuff that I have very little familiarity with, so they'll throw a project at me and be like, figure it out, and then if you don't have teammates, if you find yourself in a situation or a scenario like myself where you're the lone person on that project, then by all means, check it out. Try to use my approach, because it's something that's helped me and it might be able to help you too. So yeah, leave a comment if you agree with this, disagree with this, or if you just want to call me out on something, feel free. Let's talk. Take care, everyone.